And welcome everybody. This is Dr. Espen from Dr. ETV. I am really excited to have a different and awesome conversation today. We are joined by Dr. Jennifer Fried. She has got a Ph.D. as an internationally recognized psychological astrologer. This is going to be an awesome conversation. And she's also the best-selling author of the book called Use Your Planets Wisely. We've just had a little chat about this, and I'm so excited to share this with you guys. Also, the book Master Your Ultimate Cosmic Potential, and so on and so forth. She spent over 30 years consulting worldwide clients and businesses on anything from emotional learning to psychological to spiritual, educational topics. And what we're talking about today is understanding the connection between psychology and astrology. And I think this is such a very powerful thing to understand when we look to our ancestors and understand that the wise ones always looked to the sky. So there's a lot of wisdom that we're about to explore. Dr. Jennifer, I want to say welcome. Thank you. How are you today?
Well, I've had a magnificent day already anticipating our talk, but I got to swim in a beautiful pool. It's gorgeous here in Santa Barbara, California. I feel very good and excited to talk to people about the interface of psychology and astrology.
Perfect segue. Can you tell us what sparked your interest and what is this this bridge between psychology and astrology?
Well, as a very young child, certainly it was my destiny. I've always been fascinated with what makes people tick. Why are we the way we are? Why do certain things happen to some people, not to other people? It was just an obsession. And astrology at a young age captured my imagination. And then, just right out of high school, I started studying psychology, and I never stopped studying both. And one led to a PhD in psychology, and one led to an international certification in astrology. I'm possessed by the idea that we're part of a cosmic map. And if we know how to play our part well, that generates a lot more happiness and divine possibilities.
Wow, this is so cool. What have you found to be the connection between psychology, and why is this so important for people?
Well, as a therapist for many years, I would notice people would come in sometimes with like a huge acute issue. Oh, I've just caught my husband in an affair, or oh, my best friend's dying of something, like an acute issue. But often people would come in with recurring issues, these patterns. And in astrology, the patterns from the time of your birth. So this isn't something your parents did to you, etc. It's something you brought in to deal with and learn about. And if you start feeling completely responsible for the trajectory of your life with help, it makes a big difference.
This is cool. I teach a concept where our students get to choose for themselves what they believe. Either one, if they believe they're only flesh and bone, they're only the physical self, or two, if they believe that there's more, the physical something, but that we are a spirit or a soul or some sort of consciousness. And over the years, thousands and thousands have of people have gone through this experience, and over 99% of them raise their hand when I say raise your hand if you believe that there's more to you than flesh and bone. So it kind of feels like a similar conversation that one, you're not a victim of something that has happened to you in the physical experience, but you've come in to have a human type experience. Can you elaborate on your version of that?
Yes, well, I think that we are very fortunate to have these bodysuits wrapped around our incredible spirits. And our souls want to experience everything. I think souls don't really have preferences. They want to feel fully expressed, fully alive. And the astrology shows us our divine lesson plan. Like, oh, I came in to learn about betrayal. I came in to learn about abundance. I came in to learn about such and such. But everything has, it's demonstrated in my book, what we would call a lower skillful application or a higher skillful application. So you can take the same complex that you see in the astrology chart that in a low aspect would be constantly getting into abusive relationships. But if you raise it up and put it on a high aspect, it's a person who has an exquisite sense of devotion and protection and well-being. So we have a
Wow.
lot of choice in the matter.
Mm. And could you imagine though how long it might take for someone that has not had this, had the opportunity to listen to this conversation or learn the higher realms or the understanding of that this might be happening for a reason, to repeat these traumas
Yeah.
over and over and over and over again? Can you give us your context on that, such as, okay, one, if I see it happening to me, I'm going to repeat it over and over again because I haven't caught the lesson. Two, if I do see who I am and that I'm coming in to learn something, what's the difference between those two scenarios?
Well, I'm going to put on my other hat, which is I'm a national consultant for EMDR, which is traumatic counseling. And
Mhm.
what I've noticed is the body keeps the score. So if you've had repeated trauma, you're not going to be able to think your way out of it in a new age concept. You're going to have to actually get some help to release the trauma from the body so that you have a fresh perspective. So, what I would say is if any of your listeners or viewers are thinking, wow, I keep having the same experience, I'm the common denominator, then that indicates trauma if it's negative. If it's positive, yippee, you're having the same experience. It's wonderful. Keep doing
Yeah.
it. But many of the times that people come to consult me, or I imagine you, there's some things that keep grinding that are not working out. And that means trauma. Because if you are free to choose and you have all your optimum mental health, you don't choose negative situations. You put up healthy boundaries, you'd be out of there.
Oh, this is so good. Holy moly. Okay, so can tell us, if a client comes to you, and you've been consulting people at all kinds of different ages and levels in life, people
Wherever.
come to you. I had the privilege of having a quick chat with you before we got started. You
Yeah.
got some details from me and you kind of did a bit of a reading, and I was like, whoa, that's so spot on. And I've found so much useful information throughout my life by looking at information that may be astrologically related. Can you give us some context as to when a patient or a student, client would come to you? What kind of the things that you would go through to give them the information that they need?
Well, what I do in my practice, which by the way has no openings, but I still want to hear from people, I work with people for a 50 or 60-minute hour to look at their chart, but not just to see what the patterns are and discuss them, but talk about ways through them and ways to assist themselves to change and transmute that energy. So it's a combination insight, but insight is never enough, and practice. The
Yeah.
only way to build our new muscles is we have to do things differently repeatedly.
Wow. And let's go a little bit into what you shared with me earlier today in regards to me, because you said I've come in to learn some lessons and these things. And so when you shared this, I
Yes.
am then now, and I've heard similar things before. So, I've done a lot of work on myself, but still very useful information. And now I've got more data, more consciousness to see a situation as it arrives for what it really is, or how to prepare for it not to arrive. Can you let's go there. Let's have a quick conversation. You took down my date of birth and we had a quick chat. How does it work?
Yes, but do you want me to talk about that particular thing or another thing in your chart that we could talk about? What do you want to
We could talk about another thing. You could talk about whatever you want. Let's have a look at the chart and see what else is showing.
Okay, so when I'm looking at your chart, January 2nd, 1983, the first thing that I notice is that you have your sun sign in Capricorn, which is the ultimate sense of duty and responsibility. And that is always going to be foremost as your ego identity, that you feel responsible. Now, the low side of that is you take responsibility for things that are none of your business.
Hmm.
So you need to loosen up on that.
Yeah.
And the high side of that is you're a steward and you really lead people to a sense of high dignity. So that's the low and the high side. So I would talk about that. But what really fascinates me as an aspect of your chart, because you are living your life as your chart, you have your moon in Leo, which is about emotional need, non negotiable need to be loved and to express deep, passionate love. And it's in your house of community. So you are here as an emotional beacon of unconditional love. That is one of your mandates. And what I see as healthy, if I'm talking to somebody like you, is you're living that. So you're going to be pretty darn happy. It's only when we don't live what our map says that we feel very out of touch with ourselves. So there's also another piece to that moon, which is it's opposed by Mars. So that means there's a lot of force behind this passion. And I'm certain, just out of 30 something years counseling people, that as a young person, you had to really learn to manage your energy because it's extreme. And so I would
Mhm.
imagine if I was your mother and you were 2 or 4, I'd be like, Jesus, what am I going to do with him? But I imagine as you got older, you figured out you've got to work out every day or you're going to be a
Mhm.
little bit of a tiger on other people. Is that accurate?
Very much so, and it's still the same to this to this day. I'm trying to manage what to do with all the energy. Yes.
Well, it's extreme. So I want to validate, and this is part of what happens in a reading with me, is some things are just true. And then you can have great self-compassion and you get more interested in how to work with these energies. And for you, it's all about creative expression. And I think you mentioned right when we were talking earlier that you get in a workflow and you can stay up all hours of the night. Well, part of your issue this lifetime will be self regulation. Like, come on, Dr. Espen, time to go to sleep. Even though you are thrilled beyond belief with what's happening, your
Mhm.
body needs to have a cycle of rest and play. So that's one of the things that we would talk about. And then, practically speaking, how are you going to work with this exuberance, which is so beautiful, and put it in balance with temperance, moderation, etc.? That's one of the.
Wow. Thank you so much. This is very, very useful. And honestly, the first thing that came to mind when you started sharing this, firstly, you're absolutely spot on. Secondly, is like for me as an educator and a qualified teacher, I used to teach in schools. One of the things that I found to be so sad was that the curriculum was so far from what was needing to be taught.
Couldn't agree more.
And I'm looking, and you've got a PhD, obviously, so you know this super duper well. I was just thinking, wow, it's so sad that this is not in schools. This needs to be in schools. This level of information needs to be taught in schools so that people can understand themselves and not think that they're broken or that there's anything wrong with them. But rather to find this connection. How did you find this connection between the psychology and astrology?
Well, first, I want to go back to something you said because I
Please.
also work with young people.
Hmm.
And I want to say the worst thing you could do to a young boy like you is ask you to sit still in a chair.
Yeah.
That would be like prison to this soul. And it breaks my heart when I walk into a classroom, as I do, and I see people's spirits being crushed under a one size fits all education method. When if they had
Mhm.
seen your chart, I would be, oh, he should be in the wilderness section of education. Let's give him some really big trees to chop down and learn.
Throw him out in the garden. Yeah. Let him
Yeah,
run.
so I just want to say, this is my passion is to let people know, no, there's nothing wrong with you. There is a lot wrong with our institutions that try to commodify education and turn it into pablum for the people. But
Yeah.
anyway, back to your question, psychology and astrology. To
And I
me,
just
they
want to pop this
naturally
in there before we get into it. I just want to put
yeah.
this in there. There's a lot of people watching, and the comments are coming through, and they're loving it. So if you guys
Okay,
have a specific question for Dr. Jennifer, just put it in the chat section as we go through, and if it's relevant, we might ask. Okay, back
thanks.
to you. How do you find the combo between the two?
Well, for me, it really was. I was always interested in astrology. I don't know why. Nothing of my background, of my family would put me there. That's why I'm saying there was some destiny. And then I had a boyfriend in first year of college who said, I've never seen anyone just go up and talk to all kinds of strangers. You should get a degree in counseling. You're doing it anyway. And so I started that path at the same time, but I just kept with both paths until I got my PhD in psychology, got certified internationally in astrology. And for me, they're the perfect combination because in the psychological capacity, people want to solve problems. And the astrological consultation is people want to understand their divine plan or their mission. And if you put them together, it's this beautiful sense of what you're being called to do in this lifetime and how to do it most effectively.
Wow, this is cool. This is really cool. And it's literally written in a, how would you call it? Is it a system? Is it a, do you have a
So,
system where you add
yes.
information and you get
Well,
information out of?
yes, my book, Use Your Planets Wisely, that is a
Mm,
best-selling book, but what it is it's a very practical education in understanding yourself and others. So if you get the book and you get a free chart, which you can get anywhere now, you can go through my book and understand very deeply, and people keep telling me how helpful this is, the choices they have to make given their chart. And
huh.
this is and I have a new book coming out, by the way, called A Map to Your Soul, which is on pre-order right now everywhere you can look. And both books are addressing my mission in this life, which is full self expression and freedom. This is what I
Mm.
want for you. This is what I want for me. I know it's possible. I've come from a lot of trauma, and somehow I managed to have an extremely happy life. So if I can do it, I know people can do it. It's just they need to have an understanding of how to do it.
And this book would give them the idea and the blueprint
Yes,
to
it
understand
gives
this.
well, it gives you choice points. I'm not a big believer in like, "Here, just do it like this." It tells you very clearly, "Here are the possibilities. What do you choose?"
Mm, very cool. This is good. That's like a map, and then
Yes,
you choose which direction you wish to go. I love this because that's a combination of understanding astrology
yes.
and what is written in the stars and free will, the combination of the two.
Yes, and I think the most important thing I've learned, because of course I'm a work in progress myself, is I have three levels of application that I think we're always functioning on. One is primitive, which is the reptilian brain and just reactivity and fear. One
Hmm.
is adaptive, which is pretty good functioning ego strength. And then what I call the evolving, which is when you've transcended for moments the ego stuff and you're
Hmm.
just here in service and gratitude. And my book talks about those three levels. And I know for myself, if I can identify, whoa, I'm in reactivity, I'm in fear,
Yeah,
that's the moment I can change.
yeah.
Yeah,
I love this. The hindbrain's kicking in. I'm getting super emotional right now. I need to access other parts of the brain and not be so reactive.
exactly. And you really know about this. Again, looking at your chart, you have an extreme capacity and ability to translate difficult concepts into very applicable, easy, accessible ideas. That's one of your
This
gifts.
is very interesting because I sent, and this could inspire those watching actually. Once a year, I send out an email to my staff, to my closest contractors, and to my friends, and it has a series of questions where I ask them to provide feedback. I call feedback, is love, I say, because without feedback, I can't grow. So the question is, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Where am I out of integrity? What would you see me improve to be a better leader? And just the questions and the responses that I get back are so relevant because it shows me what I need to know, and it also gives my staff and my team the opportunity to speak up. And without this information, I wouldn't have been where I am. And one of the bits of feedback that I read last night, interestingly enough, was exactly what you're talking about now.
Yeah.
Very, very relevant.
Well, again, I did get my PhD, but I was astonished in my particular graduate school that people that had achieved that much education, in many cases, had no relational skills, none. So I
Mm,
thought, too much emphasis on the mental, not enough emphasis on the heart and the connection. And your chart is a blend of incredible intellectual ferocity and total heart center. And I think that's an important weave we have to make now.
mm. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that was literally the takeaway. I was like taking difficult concepts, such as, call it consciousness, even though it's such a simple concept, but to
Yeah.
explain and understand and teach it in a way that's really easy. And that's part of what we do in our work. I think it's so important to really simplify things. Like Einstein said, if you can't explain it simply, then you don't understand it fully.
That's a good
This
one, and I was just thinking how fun it would be if you taught the entire 0 to 6 curriculum on consciousness for young kids. It
oh,
would be
it would
so
be a
fun.
dream come true.
I can see
Um,
it. I can
uh,
see it because I see
oh,
these kids just building little things and you making jokes, and it would be so fun.
I would be literally on purpose, so much on purpose, and I've even started writing a curriculum called Quantum Kids,
Oh,
and
see, this is your chart. This is your chart. Just so you know, you have the part of fortune and with children. You have this amazing Mars energy in Aquarius for children. And gosh knows we need the children to have a much different
mhm,
take than they've
yeah,
been getting.
yeah. So soon we'll be launching new curriculums for the younger ones. That'll be a privilege. Just wait for the system to shift a bit, and then we'll be ready when the system changes.
You're getting ready. You're getting ready.
Indeed. Hey, Doc, I got a quick question. There's a question here from Valerie, and she's asking, do you agree with behavioral profiling?
Well, I'm not
Um,
even sure I know what that is, Valerie.
so it's kind of behavioral profiling is kind of like if you look at the disc profile, for example, and certain people answer certain questions and they find out what type of person they are. And it says knowing our innate energy is also so appropriate. Um, there is a tool known as extended disc, which I just talked to.
Yeah.
Effectively, it's a behavioral profile where people profile themselves using questions.
Oh.
That might be relevant for psychology.
Yes, 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 certainly.
Hmm.
Typology of all types, because I'm
Hmm.
interested in the Enneagram. This sounds like another typology system.
Yep.
I just had this insight the other day because I was joking around with a friend. I think they're all like having a fake ID. Like, this is your gateway. Yes, even
Hmm.
astrology. Astrology is your gateway to a self awareness, but ultimately, we're none of these things. We're all of these
Hmm.
things. So I don't like to get too concretized in a fixed identity because I
Hmm.
think we're really always evolving if we choose to be. So these
Hmm.
are gateways. It's like gets you in the door, gets you self-aware. Now keep going.
Absolutely love that. And I'm going to buy your book. I'm excited already. I collect books, and this is the next on my list. I'm so excited. I've got a question for you, which is probably my favorite question that I like to ask people. You mind
No,
if
go.
I
I'm go.
throw one off the cuff? Okay. My question is this. I want you to now imagine that you're on the world stage.
Hmm.
Okay, so you're on the world stage. There's hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of people watching,
Yes.
and they're all there to
Hmm.
listen to your message to the world.
Hmm.
And I want you to imagine that this is taking place now, and you've got the
Totally.
speaking staff and the talking stick, and the attention's on you. What is your message to the world at this time?
Very clearly for me, there is no limit except for the ones that we create on what it could mean to be human. And the only core quality that will see us through and make us who we can be is kindness. Be all of who you can be, but always first and forever be kind.
Wow. Mm. Let's just take a moment to let that sink in. I ask that question so often, and I observe people. And sometimes they start swaying, and sometimes they and ah, and sometimes they say, "My message would be." You just went straight, bang. This is my message: kindness. Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. I'm absolutely delighted,
Thank you.
honored, and excited. And I want to also check in. Is there anything else that you want to share on this, particularly where people can find out more about you, or if there's anything else that you think, for example, earlier in our conversation, you talk about the transition from the age of Pisces to Aquarius, I believe it was,
Yes,
and what's shifting. Do you want to give us some context
yes,
on this? Because I think this is quite
yes. I,
relevant
I
with
do
what's
want to
happening in the.
say, we all, in my opinion, chose to be here at this critical time. We are in a transition stage from 2,300 years of giving our power to imagine God or gods. And the next evolution of humankind is to actually believe that every single person has the divine within, that we all have an enormous role to play and responsibility to play in making heaven on earth. We have everything to create heaven on earth. It's up to us to do it. There's no one going to save us. It's each of us and every one of us deciding right now to take our gift, big or small, and to commit. This is what this next age requires.
I love this, and honestly, irrelevant of what our beliefs are in terms of, God or spirit or whatever, I think this message is really, really applicable. We all have divinity within, and it is all of our responsibilities to do something about this and to remember the power that we hold and have. Is that correct?
Yes, and I also feel very fond of all religious traditions. So I want people to understand I have a great connection, for example, to Jesus. Any sage, wise avatar would always tell you, know the God within, because
Mm.
that's where it begins. That's where it begins. If I decide that you, Dr. Espin, are my God, I have forgotten my own sense of divinity. And I think this is
Oh,
a very important piece for us
mm.
all to realize again. Don't rely on anyone else to become that light. Be the light.
Oh, this is goosebump moment. I know I work a lot with Christ consciousness. I pray regularly, and I have also this reminder within that I am an expression of source, and so it is up to me to create the change I wish to see in the world, to be the light and to be the kindness, as you
Yes.
said. Wow, what a beautiful reminder. Any last words you want to share with the listeners, viewers, and tell us also included where we can go to get some of your
Yes.
books and so on
Well,
and so forth.
please go to jenniferfreed.com to find out more about me and to subscribe for free to some newsletters I send out, etc. There'll be more on my new book coming out in the fall. I really feel called to go to Australia at some point. So I'd also like an invitation that would be impossible to refuse.
Okay, cool. Well, you have a guest speaking appearance at one of my events, should you want to, because I think this would be brilliant for people. And if you go in the chat section, guys, what I'd like you to do, if you want Jennifer to come to Australia, comment in the chat section and also tag some people. There's lots of people watching, even though we're early in the morning. This is really great. So comment in the chat section and tag some people and share this with people, because when we get this information, we can be reminded of who and what we are and how to tread with more consciousness. I think this is spot on. So yes, the invitation is already there, sister. Let's see how things evolve and stay in touch. I'll send you my email as well, and feel free to reach out. You're more than welcome to
And I
come
want to
stay
say
with
to
us.
you, it touches my heart in the deepest way that you're such a great example of this passionate, loving kindness. And that I really want you to do Quantum Kids, because yes, we all have to participate, but these young ones are coming in really wanting a different story. And I really think that you can bring that story. So thank you.
Oh, it's a privilege and an honor. It's part of my purpose, and I'm so blessed to know what it is and to walk that path in that way. So many people in the chat section are saying, Jennifer Freed, Australia needs you.
We'll see how it goes.
Absolutely. Until we speak again, thank you so much for your magnificent work. Thank you for taking the time to be here with us today. And thank you, everyone, for watching Dr. ETV. And go and check out jenniferfreed.com and jump on the newsletter. I think this is a really good idea to stay in touch.
Okay, thank you so much. Have a
Thanks
great
again.
daytime.
Yes, absolutely. Have an amazing day, an amazing night. Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.